was just looking here. I have the rankings in front of me. From 13 to 18 is really your SEC section, except for BYU with Auburn 13, Texas A&M 14, Ole Miss 16, Mississippi State 17, Kentucky 18. I understand that the Big Ten.
Let's prop up the SEC.
I know. The Big Ten has
one many years ago at the NCAA. Let's put them all in the East.
The Big Ten has 6 in there. The SEC has 7, but the SEC also has everybody pretty much from 18 up. So it certainly does feel like that the committee has announced here in week 1 that that they are protecting the SEC product by having everybody there, because even when the cannibalization happens, I mean, obviously number 16 Ole Miss and number 17 Mississippi State will play each other in the Egg Bowl around Thanksgiving. You know, these teams will start to knock each other off. But even with that, you lose a game. Well, how can we drop the loser of the Egg Bowl from 16 or 17 out of the rankings? We may as well put them at 24, 25. And it reminds me of a year where they really seemed to want to make sure that they kept Alabama front and center, and they inserted a non-conference opponent in at 25 on one of the last rankings, and it was obviously it was totally a screw job at that point, because that team didn't deserve to be there at that point. There were so many other Power 5 teams that were well above them in terms of prestige and body of work. I mean, it was a real joke. I can't even remember who it was. I mean, and I think it was a P5 team, but it wasn't a great one.
I think it was a group of 5 team.
I can't even remember.
I think it was the 2017 year when they had to stretch to get him to the 4 spot. Let's see here. I think that was the year. I think it was Fresno State who was 10-4. I think it was Fresno State in 2017 that they snuck into the top 25 at the end.
Well, there's a lot of teams you're going to have to keep track of that have been used to help prop up Alabama in the SEC. So probably somebody from every year. In fact, to get back real quick to the Texas San Antonio, they were brought up on the conference call, and Gary Barta said, well, their best win is Illinois. And it's like, well, yes, that's true. And it's not a great win. But they also beat Memphis. Memphis beat Mississippi State. And yet Mississippi State is number 17. Same Mississippi State is in this ranking. They're ranked this high because of their win over Texas A&M and their win over Kentucky. 2 teams that are overrated by the committee. It's just a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's all used to justify whatever they want. And it's gotten to the point where it's for me, it's time like to have conference champions get automatic bids and then go from there. And I know people will say, but you could have a 9-3 team or 10-3 team. I don't care. That's fine. I don't care
either.
And well, it lessens the season. I disagree with that. It makes the season more impactful for everybody.
Absolutely.
It makes more games more important. And if you win your conference and you're 9-3 or whatever, you know, that doesn't mean you're going to win it all, but at least you've gotten into the mix. And it's clear that the group of 5, good luck ever getting into the mix the way it is right now. And I don't know that it's necessarily Cincinnati's fault as much as it is Indiana's fault this time for failing the Bearcats. I do think when you're a group of 5 team, if you want to complain, if you want to get into it, like you've got to have, you can't play Murray State or whatever in the non-conference. You've got to play 3 Power 5 teams. And then you still have only played a third of the Power 5 teams as everybody else. So even then, you're not going to have a great argument for making the playoffs as they stand now.
I don't think their league's any worse than the Pac-12, though. So, I mean, they don't play a lot head-to-head. So,
well, and you can look at the ACC as well. Like Cincinnati's got more ranked opponents ahead of them than Wake Forest does. And so, yeah, you're right. Giving these other programs, these other conferences too much credit. And, you know, we're probably all guilty of stuff we're accusing others of as well when it comes to the AAC and the Pac-12 and the ACC as well. And just more reason to have automatic qualifiers and I guess an expanded playoff.
Yeah, but Wake and Oregon, at least, I mean, maybe not as much Oregon as of late, but at least Wake has been impressive in its wins. Cincinnati has not been very impressive in its wins against teams with 1 or 2 wins this season. I mean, the Navy game comes to mind. It certainly is not, Cincinnati has to be doing it better and cleaner than everybody else, and Cincinnati is not doing that. And I mean, we can go back, did you win the game? Okay, they won the game, but it's, you're not doing anything to impress the hearts and minds of the 13 men and women down there in the room in Grapevine, Texas.
Yeah, I'll go back 30 years to the UNLV basketball days. They played in the Big West, and it wasn't a good conference, but they were clearly the best team because they beat everybody by 30 or 40 points, and you knew from watching them. And Cincinnati's not doing that. And Luke Fickell said himself this week that before the game, so last week, that they've probably succumbed to that kind of pressure and trying to live up to those expectations, and it's not easy.
I have one other note to make, and then we'll get to some of these questions in the live chat. Somebody explained to me, I thought I had a pretty good grasp of strength of schedule until I saw yesterday that Oregon had the 22nd ranked schedule in the country, and this is currently. They're talking about current because they were looking at Wake and Cincinnati at 98th and I think 102, and Wake's is going to jump immensely with its next 4 games and on into an ACC championship game if they would get there, versus Cincinnati's going to probably stagnate around 100. But listen to this. This is the 22nd ranked schedule in the country. How is this? Okay, Ohio State, obviously. Other than that, second best game, Fresno State. Okay, they're 22 or 23 in the committee's rankings, which that can certainly be debated. They lost to Hawaii. They're 7-2. So Fresno State. We got Ohio State. Stony Brook, Arizona, one of the worst teams in the country. Stanford, well documented, 3-5, 3-6, whatever they are. That's their loss. Cal, I don't know what they are currently. They were 1-5 a couple weeks ago. I think they picked up another win. They're 2-6, 3-5 in that range. UCLA, that might arguably be their second win. They've been dragged down to 5-4, not losing to good teams. Colorado is one of the worst teams in the country. That's the 22nd ranked schedule.
It's crazy. I don't know.
It's awful.
Maybe they get extra points for playing Ohio State on the road with that formula. I don't know, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't look good on paper. I mean, only 1 or 2, well, 2 or 3 ranked or 2 or 3 teams with winning records. I mean, that's pretty bad. Ohio State's is probably middle of the pack. I don't know. I mean, on one hand, you get credit for playing Oregon. On the other hand, you lost to them. So, how do you rate that? But I don't know.
Do you guys remember where Ohio State, they were like 30, 35 spots behind Oregon. They were around 54, 56, somewhere in that range. They showed the schedule comparison.
Yeah,
and Ohio State's got Oregon. So basically, how do you equate them against each other? Because they played, I would say it's roughly the same game to a certain extent. Minnesota's, they're in the committee's top 20. Maryland's got a winning record at 5-3. I know it's not a great schedule. It's going to improve. Penn State. So that's not a better schedule than Oregon's.
Maryland's going to win a couple for them, and Rutgers, did win one over Illinois, but the gains on the schedule for Ohio State are going to be few and far between. Akron, but they fumbled the ball in the end zone going in for a touchdown last night. Ryan Day probably threw a glass through his flat screen, seeing the end of that game, but. I don't even know who were they playing Buffalo maybe last night. It all runs together, but that was a action that went against them, I think, last night. And that's, as Kevin says, that's a reason why Akron can't have nice things. So
I'll take Minnesota, Penn State, and Maryland over
Cal, Stanford,
Fresno State, UCLA, and Cal, I guess.
How is that? UCLA beat that juggernaut LSU to start the season.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
that's what did it right there.
Juggernaut.
All right, let's see what we
He's a
got.
juggernaut.
Oregon is the only Pac-12 team that is 3 games over 500 or better. And
Yeah.
they've got a couple that are 2 games over and some that are 1 game over. So maybe it's just you play enough 4-4 teams, and the committee or the schedule, that formula, whatever, really likes it. And I don't. Strength of schedule is a funny stat, and it's not always funny.